This is Gemara in Gittin and Daf Samoch Zayin, and we pick it up in the bottom of Samoch Vav Amid Beis. We're approximately 12 lines from the bottom. First word in line is Chadita. V'i Sfiralon. And really, this is a continuation of the Gemara from the top of the Amid. We'll just scroll up for a moment as we're trying to figure out what exactly was the suffix of Shmuel. The Gemara began with a statement by Rav Yomi Ava that he sent from the Beir of Shmuel. The Yalamdenu Rabbeinu, that if someone told to two people, Kisvu to Nugel Ishti, and he told the cipher, Vikasu, and they signed it, what is the din? Shmuel said, Teitzev Adavar Tzarich Talmud. And the big question is, Maya Adavar Tzarich Talmud, what exactly was this suffix of Shmuel? That's what we've been trying to figure out. So we finished off by saying that we're dealing with a Beit Dina Chadita that doesn't know how to sign their name. On that asks the Gemara, if you're going to tell me that in the case when he told them to write, what does that mean? That means that their signatures, kosher. But the actual get is kosher. Why? Because it was written by a kosher sofer. Says the Gemara, but if that's true, literally words are not given over to a shliach. So why would Shmuel have thought that this case should be any different? Why would Shmuel have thought that the shliach of the husband would have the power to give over and appoint a sofer to write the get? We know that Shmuel holds that mili lo mimsar on the shliach. You can't give over the power to someone else. Answers the Gemara, Amri isi virlande kasaivu. Ksavi adam nu. If you hold that ksaivu means ksavi adam, ksav again nase ka'amar amru. Then when the ksava get, the writing of the get, it's as if the husband told the shliach, Imru, tell someone else to write the get. Meaning, when did we say the mili lo memsar l'shliach is not when it was explicit. But if the husband says, go and get a cipher, that's the chiddush. The Gemara is being mechadish, that will be different. And the Gemara articulates this indeed, that Rav Yosi admits, Ba'amar Imru, that in such a scenario, when he's told explicitly to tell someone else to write the get, then the case would be different and it would work to transfer the power to write the get in such a scenario. Ask the Gemara, is this true? Me, Maider Rav Yosi, 7 lines from the bottom, Ba'amar Imru. So Rav Yosi really admit in such a case, but tonight we learn to the Mishnah, Ksava Sefer, Ve'id, Kosher. We learned that if the get has the writing of the Sefer and has Eidim, then it is Kosher. Ve'amar Rav Yirmiyah, explaining what this Mishnah meant, says Rav Yirmiyah, Chsam Sefer Shaninu. We're talking about where the Sefer signed it. Ve'amar Rav Chisda, Masnisa Nani, Rav Yosi Da'amar, Mili Loi Memsar L'Shliach. So we see that even in a scenario, explains the Gemara, because so far we don't know why is this shver, because it just says Mili lo memsar l'shliach. We know that's what Shmuel holds, but why does this show us that even in the case of Amr Imru, even when he's told explicitly, says the Gemara, if you're going to tell me Moed Rav Yosi B'Amr Imru, if you're going to tell me Rav Yosi is Moed in this case, Navig Mina Chorba, destruction could come. Why? Because at times the husband's going to tell two people as we turn over to Samach Zayin Amr Alf. What's the husband going to tell to two people? Amru l'Sefer, tell the Sefer of Yichtu, and he should write it. Uploini. And the and these two people should sign it. Because of the embarrassment of the cipher, but the shliach is going to be nervous to insult the cipher. So what's he going to do? he's going to have one of those two people sign, Saadi, v'seifer ba'adayu, and the Seifer will sign together with him. And the problem is, Uba'alohi amarachi. So a bit of a long-winded question, but proves the Gemara that clearly Shmuel cannot be admitting in this case of Amr Imru, because if he admitted in the case of Amr Imru, we could come out to have a disaster. That in this case, that what's going to happen? They're going to feel bad. They're going to have to say for one of the Eidim sign. That's not what the husband actually said. Explains the Gemara, no problem. Kivan damar mar kosher v'lo yisasek in Israel. Since Mar said, since Rav, as quoted by Rav Huna, said, this is kosher, but you should not do this. Lo yishchiach. Therefore, it's not going to be common, and therefore, we don't have to worry about such a case. Says the Gemara, 1 second. Maybe he told two people to tell the sefer and write it, and you two sign it. And what's he going to go and do? But because the guy is nervous that the sefer is going to be embarrassed, why wasn't I asked to sign? The same issue that he didn't have the sefer signed with one of the Eidim. That's not indeed what the husband said. Answers the Gemara, Amri Anami, Kosher V'loi Sasehu. This also is the case where the get is kosher, but the Rabbanan said they should not do it, a special din the Rabbanan, and therefore we don't have to be worried about this as well. But now, comments the Gemara, this din, whether we allow people to actually act upon it, is a debated point. If you hold kosher v'lo then great. Alaman damar, but it's man damar that holds kosher v'isas that he's actually allowed to do a Michael Meimar. Ella, finally the Gemara concludes, Rav Yosi Tarti Amar. Rav Yosi is saying in them both cases the get is pasul. Shmuel suffered like Kavasei b'chada. The whole issue arose because we thought that Shmuel went all the way with Rav Yosi. Says the Gemara, nothing doing. Gufa says the Gemara, let's dive a little bit deeper in something we just said. Amar Shmuel, Amar Rebbe, halacha ki Rav Yosi, damar mili lo memzar an l'shliach. Shmuel gave over the din in the name of Rebbe that mili are not given over to shliach. Amr lefan of Shimon Berebi, Sir Shimon Berebi says over in front of him, we know that this Rav Yosi is not a simple point. There are Meir as well as Chanina argue on Rav Yosi. Ma'ara Rebbe loimer lach Rav Yosi. So the Maisa, why is he sticking that the lach is like Rav Yosi? Amar Loi responded, Shtaik b'ni shtaik. Loi Roi says Rav Yosi, that you did not see Rav Yosi. El Mali Ritai. If you would have seen him, you would have known Nimaiku Imai. The Rav Yosi always has a line that we find throughout Shas. Rav Yosi has Nimaiku Imai. Rav Yosi is always assumed that he has a clear explanation to everything that he says. De Tanya, like we learned in a Braysi, Ben Yudehi Maina Shvachan Shel Chachamim. He would tell over the praise of the Chacham. Rameir was a Chacham v'Sefer. Rav Yudah was a Chacham l'Chsheyirtze. Rav Tarfa was a Gal Shal L'Gaizim, literally a pile of nuts. Rav Yishmael was Chanus. Miyuzenes was a store that could always provide. Rav Akiva was Reitzer Blum, was a storehouse that was full of everything. Rav Yochanan Nuri was a Kupas Rechailim, was a spice box of a peddler. Rav Lazben Azario was Kupish Al Basam. Excuse me, Kupish Al Basam. This is the spice box. Mish Rav Lazben Yaakov is Kavanaki, and Rav Yosi Namaiku Imai. That's the line that we're looking for. That Rav Yosi is assumed that he always has the reasons with him. Finally, we just wrap up the Brayso of Shimon Toicha and Harbe. He ground a lot of Mighty Kimma, meaning he refined everything until he got to the very end, the truth of the matter. Tana Mishkach. Tana Mishkach Kimma. What does this mean that he ground a lot and he only took out a little? But some said that he forgot a little bit. Mishkach Kimma, Masha Maitzi, Eina Maitzi Ela Subin. He only got out the bad stuff. There were only one dot, the cream of the cream of Rav Akiva. So even obviously this was godless, but it was only one little bit. We can imagine what Rabbi Akiva was. And Gufa continues the Gemara, 15 lines to the bottom. First one, learn on the line is Shal Rabbi Akiva. Amr l'shnayim imr l'seifer. He told people to tell the Sefer v'yichtov, they should write the get. Pliny v'yichtemu, and these two people should eidim. Amr Avuna Amr Rav, it is kosher. However, if lo yisas zois b'Yisrael, one should not do this. Amr Ula Rav Nachman says, Ula to Rav Nachman v'amila. Rav Nachman le'ula me'achar de kosher. Amay lo yisas zois b'Yisrael. This is probably a question that was bothering a lot of people at the beginning of this year today. That we kept quoting this line that it's kosher, but lo yisas davar. So the Gemara articulates, what exactly does this mean? If it's kosher, it's kosher. If it's lo yisas zois, it's lo yisas zois. It's kosher, but don't do it. So finally, the Gemara explains, Amar Lei, Chayshinan Shema Tischar Eidim. You know why lo yisas zois? Because we're afraid that the wife might hire witnesses to basically pull off a sham, to tell a cipher that the husband sent him, tell the Eidim to sign, and therefore we're nervous that this whole story is going to happen. Says the Gemara, do we really suspect for this? Vatanya Eidim achatumim al stay mekach. Anytime we have Eidim that are signed on a field as a sale, Val get isha, loy chashu chachamim, l'davar zeh. Chazal were never concerned that maybe someone hired false witnesses. So why all of a sudden over here are we worried? Says the Gemara, Maisa loy avdi dibura ka amri. You're right. Witnesses might not actually testify falsely. So if that's your concern, it's true. But dibura ka amri, they might say false words. What does that mean? They might go listen to the husband and be the agent to hire false witnesses. So that's what we have to contend with, the fact that they might have bad words. That's not viewed, which of course it's really the same thing, but that's not viewed as such a crime in the eyes of the witnesses. Continues the Gemara, 6 lines from the bottom, Amr l'shnayim imr l'sefer v'yichtov atem chatumu. So it tells two people, tell a sefer to write a get, and you two are going to be the ones to sign it. Rav Chisda Amar Kashav Laisasi, you shouldn't do it. Rav Archana Amar Kashav Isase. Rav Nachman Amar Kashav Laisase. Rav Shishis Amar Kashav Isase. Rav Amar Kashav Laisase. Rav Yisi Amar Kashav Isase. An entire list of different Amarayim. Some said it's kosher and you could actually act this way, and some said it's kosher but you should not act this way. And some switch the final two opinions, the opinions of Rabbah and Rav Yisi. And we finish up over here, wrapping up the parak, the 2 dots on Samach Zayin Mebei, says the Gemara. Amrula Asara Kisvu Get, a line that we read in the very beginning of the Masechta. Someone tells 2 people to write the get for him. What is the status? Says the Gemara, Tanarabban Asara Kisvu Get. Utinu Leishti, writing give a get to my Vechad Kais Val Yidei Kulam. One writes for all of them. Kulchem Kasaivu, but if you told them all to write it, then Echad Kaisim B'maimad Kulim. Then one has to actually write it in the presence of all of them. Halichul get leishti. If someone says to take this get to wife, then Echad Melech, one brings it. They kulam for all of them. But if he said kulchem halichu, but if he told all of them to bring it, then Echad Melech b'maimad kulam. So the difference here is that when he directs them, Davka kulam, you all have to do it. Then the halacha is indeed he has to do it b'maimad kulam, in front of all them. Whereas if he says to do it, then it's not b'maimad kulam. So and with this we wrap up the parak. Mana aisan mahu. What's the halacha if he told an entire group to write it? What's the din? Meaning, does he mean for each and every one of them? Or does he mean from one of all of them? This is sort of like a case in between the kulchem and in between when he just told the whole group. So Rav Huna Amar Mana Eina Kikulchem. Rav Yochanan Mishum Rav Lazar Demin Roima Amar Mana Harehu Kikulchem. So we have a machlekes whether mana is kikulchem or not. Amar Papa. V'loi pligi hadamana kulu v'hana damana mixayu. Says Rav Papa, there's no machlekes. One is when it's listed all the people. One is when he listed only some of the people. If you listed all of them, then they all have to do it. If not, then only some of them have to do it. Amri la lahayisa. Some say this way. So meaning, says the Gemara, it's not clear which is which. Some say that if the husband said the entire group, then only two have to sign, because then those two are acting on behalf of the whole group, as Rav Huna said. But if he only said some of the members, then whichever ones he said has to sign. And some say the other way. And we wrap up, Iskin Rav Huda Begita de Kulchem Kesuvo. Rav Yehuda was metakin, and again they all have to sign. Oy Kulchem, Oy Kol Chad V'Chan Minchen, says Rav Yehuda, that a get that was given in front of a group of people where he said either kulchem, then what should he write? He should write in the get Concise. The husband told us to write oy kulchem, oy kol chad v'chan min ochayin, either all of you or any one of you. Chataimu, he told us to sign. Oy kulchem oy trei min chayin, oy chilu, or he told oy vilu, or he told us to deliver the get. Oy kulchem, oy kol chad v'chan min chayin, or any one of you. Again, basically he makes that all potential options are included inside the sale. Says the Gemara, Amar Rava is in the Tgaz Libure. But why don't we worry that they might cut off the star? That he might cut the words. And we're going to be missing the one of you. Vasilif Sulain is going to possibly get, because it's not going to have everyone on the get, and they're going to think it's a get of Kulchem, which you need all of them. Amar Lahu, Amar Rava, Kisaivu. The husband said, write a get, any one of you, meaning he wouldn't put in the word kulchem, he wouldn't put in the word he wouldn't put in that word, because then we don't have to be worried that he would cut it off. If there was a word of kulchem, then there's a concern that what might happen. Says Rava, we have to be worried that he might cut off part of the get, and we're going to come to think that the get is possible. So rather, Rava says, what should the Sefer write? He should write that the husband said, write a get any one of you, sign a get one of you, or give a get any one of you. We should do, as always, an incredible chazara on the 6th parak of Gittin. And with that, we dive straight into the 7th parak, which, as you see, begins with a bit of a interesting word. It just jumps right out at you. Kardaikis. Someone that was seized by Kardaikis. What is this Kardaikis? He says, ready to give my wife. Loi Amar Klum. So what's Kardaikis? Rashi right away says it is the name of a shade. Shadim, Ashaletis, Kishashaisi Yain, Harbe Mikitoi. You have a lot of fresh wine. What happens? You have this shade that could grab hold of you. So the shade grabs hold of him and he says, ready to get for my wife? Says the Mishnah, it is meaningless. Amar, if he says, Kosfu Gala Ishti, and then Vachsu Kardaikis, and then Vachazar Melaich Techtenu, and Varachran Klum, the latter words are meaningless. Basically, the point over here being that we don't have to be worried in a scenario once he's under the spell of the shade. Nishtatek. If he can't talk and he nods his head, so we check him. 3 times. Then we do give it. And the Gemara begins with Avi's Kasha. My Kordaikis, says the Gemara. Amar Shmuel, says Shmuel, you know what this entity, this Kordaikis, the Rashi already began by teaching us in some sort of shade. Kordaikis is being overcome by new wine, fresh from the wine press. Says the Gemara, if that is true, why doesn't it just say someone that was literally bitten, nashchai, or drawn after, new wine? Why is it called a Kordaikis? Hakamash says the Gemara, Daravcha, Kordaikis Shema, that this spirit, this shade that overcomes people that had this type of, too much of this type of wine is called Kordaikis. Says the Gemara, who cares? Le'may nafkamina, what's the difference? Explains the Gemara, Likamiya. You want to write an amulet? You want to write a Kamiya? Then you need to know what to write. You need to know the name of the shade. Says the Gemara, Mayasute, what is the cure? Bisra sumka gamra v'chamra marka. The cure is lean meat broiled on coals on watered down wine. Says the Gemara, once we're on the topic of one disease, Amar Abaya, Amar Li'aim. My mother taught me, we know that when Abaya says Amar Li'aim, it's referring to the person that raised him, a certain noblewoman that taught Abaya these different remedies. And these are Gemaras that we have all over, and we just remind yourself before we embark on these lengthy Haggadahs that, of course, that which the Gemara means could always be taken at a literal level, could be taken a little bit of a deeper level, but let's at least understand it at some level. L'shimsha, for a heat stroke, Bas Yoima, Kuza Demaya. On the first day, where you have to have a cup of water. Bas Trei Yomi, a 2-day-old heat stroke, what do you need? Sikura, bloodletting. Bas Tlaisa Yomi, a 3-day heat stroke, then what? Bisasumka Gamra V'chamra Marka, like we said a moment ago, then you need a lean meat broiled on the coals and boiled down wine. L'shimcha titzka, but let's say it was more than 3 days, it was extended heat stroke, then lesi tarnagalta kamti, this is where things are going to get wild. Bring a black hen, v'likrei shesi v'eriv, and rip open this black hen lengthwise and crosswise, v'legalche limsiyata dereishe, v'loisvilei, shave the middle of the patient's head, who has this extended heat stroke, place the chicken on it, v'nanche uluye ad demisrich, and leave the chicken on his hand until the chicken sticks to this patient's head. Let him go down and stand in water, water up until his neck, until he feels faint. And then he should swim, come up from the water, and sit until he recovers. So again, ripping open the black hen, shave the patient's head, put on the head, it gets stuck, go in water and go for a swim. V'loi, and if you can't do this, what do? Lechal karti, pull out the leak. Then go down and stand in the water until his neck, until again he feels faint. So a similar thing, this is just after eating leek, swim, come up, and sit until he recovers. But limsha, bisra, sumki, for 3-day-old heat stroke, bisra, sumki, agamra, chamra, marka, as we saw a moment ago, what do? The lean meat broiled on the coals and the watered down wine. Says the Gemara, litalga, if he has some sort of chills, what do? Then bisra shemena, then you need some fatty meat, that is agamri v'chamra chaya, broiled on coals, and drink fresh, undiluted wine. So diseases we just dealt with is a 1, 2, 3 extended day heat stroke, followed by a disease brought on by the chills. Perhaps it's referring to fever being exposed to the cold. Continues the Gemara about 20 lines into this parak. First line is Bisra Shmeina. Rav Amram Chasida tells the Gemara a story. Kavi Mitzayrin lei Beirish Kluso, when the Rish Kluso was harassing him. Havi Magni lei Atalga. They made him sleep on the snow. Lamachar Amr lei. The next day they said to him, lamar. What exactly would you like to lay sule that we can bring to you? Amar, so he would respond, these people, whatever they tell them, they do the opposite. Amlu Bisra Simka. Therefore, what did he tell him? He told him, I want lean meat, agamra v'chamra marka. I want lean meat on broiled coals and watered down wine. So, of course, what do they bring him? The opposite. Aslinu Bisra Shemena. Fatty meat, agamra v'chaya, an undiluted wine. Again, we're seeing a proof to the remedy that we just saw, that for these chills, for this fever, for being exposed to cold, it's not lean meat on undiluted wine, but it's fatty meat on fresh wine. Continues the Gemara, Shama Yalta. Yalta, the wife of Nachman, heard about how much Rav Amram was suffering. So she brought him to a bathhouse, and he had him sit in the hot bath waters until the bath waters changed. It looked like blood due to all this sweat that Rav Amram sweated out. V'kabisra pshite pshiti. And its flesh was covered with round blotches. This is, sweating out a fever. Rav Yosef, Yasik Brei, when Rav Yosef had a fever, what would he do? Yasik Brei Chaya, he would turn the mill, he would cause himself to sweat a lot. Again, these are actually remedies that we know actually work. Ada Yom Hazeh. Rav Sheshes Yasik B'Kshura would carry beams. Amar and Rav Sheshes would say, Gedolim B'lacha Shemechamemes Es Baila. It warms up the person. So again, different ways to get rid of a fever, causing one to sweat it out. Continues the Gemara, once we're on the topic of the Reish Kalusa, Amalei Reish Kalusa Rav Sheshes. The Reish Kalusa said to Rav Sheshes, Mai Taima, Lo Yisayid Lan Mar, Gabon, why haven't you come to us in a while? Amar Le, Rav Sheshes said, T'lam Ali Avdi, because your Avadim, your Avdi, are not good people. The Chashidi Ever Minachai. Why? I suspect that they serve me Ever Minachai, limbs from live animals, they cut off the limb. Amar Le, Mi Emar, who says? Amar Le, Hashta, Mechavina L'cha. I'm going to show you that it's true. Amar Le, Shami Zalganov. So Rav Sheshes said to his attendant Zalganov, Aiti Lichada Kare Michavta. Go and bring one piece of an animal that the Reish Kalusa servants are preparing. And I'm going to prove to you, says Rav Sheshes, that the servants of the Reish Kalusa are up to no good. So I see lay. So the attendant went and he brought him a piece of the animal. Amar lo. So Rav Sheshes said, show me all the different cuts of the meat. So they brought the cuts, 3 legs, and put it in front of Osivu Kameh, in front of Rav Sheshes. Amr Lahu said to Rav Sheshes, what's going on over here? Why are there only 3 legs? Most animals have 4. So what do? The servant went and said, hey, what's going on? And they ran outside. They cut a leg off an animal, and they brought it in front of him. So now Rav Sheshes said to his servant, pull out the one that you stole. He put it out. Now it's a 5-legged animal. Amar lei. So basically, what do we see? Rav Sheshes just caught them in their lie. Rav Sheshes just created a situation that the servants felt the pressure. They went and cut a leg off an animal. So Rav Sheshes proved to the Reish Kalusa that the servants were serving Ever Minachai. So Amar lei, and with this we conclude, Reish Kalusa said to Rav Sheshes, if it is true, levdi kamei damar v'leichol. So let's go. You prepare the food and we'll eat together. The Reish Kalusa wanted to spend time with Rav Sheshes. Amar lei, so Rav Sheshes said, L'chai, no problem. Karivu, taka kamei. So Reish Kalusa's servants brought a table in front of them, v'aisi kamei, bisra v'osivu kamei. And they brought meat before Rav Sheshes, v'osivu kamei, rista dechanka chamta. They placed for Rav Sheshes a portion that can choke one who doesn't look at it. Kashisha, V'shakli karchei b'siduri. Rav Sheshes touched the meat and saw that there was a bone inside of it. The Reish Kalusa's servants trying to choke him up, so he took it, and what did he do? Shakli karchei b'siduri, he wrapped it in his scarf. So the Reish Kalusa's servant wanted to know what's going on. Why did Rav Sheshes wrap it up? Labasar dachel. After they ate, Amrulei, they told him, as we turn over to Samach Chesed and Aleph, and the truth is, you know what? I know we're in the middle of a story, but the story goes all the way down to Samach Chesed and Aleph. So a little bit of a cliffhanger. We're going to stop over here. We'll reread the end of this story, Mitzvah Hashem, in the next year. B'siyata Vishmaya.